Let's look at some speed problems. A truck drives 45 kilometers in 1.5 hours. What is the average speed of the truck? So what we want to do is write down our equation for average speed, figure out what variables we're given, plug them into our equation, and then solve our problem. So when we talk about average speed, we know that our equation is average speed equals distance divided by time. So in this particular question, we're trying to find the average speed. So we'll say that's our x value. The distance in this question is the 45 kilometers. And the time in this question is 1.5 hours. Since we're trying to solve for the average speed, we can use our equation the way it's given. So for average speed, we're going to plug in x. For the distance, we'd plug in 45 kilometers. Make sure you've got the number along with the unit. For time, we're going to plug in 1.5 hours. And now we're going to get our calculator out. We're going to plug in 45 divided by 1.5, and we're going to get 30 kilometers per hour. That means that the truck is going to be traveling 30 kilometers in each hour. Now let's look at our second problem. This time it says Mickey Mouse flies 544 kilometers per hour after the bad guys and captures them in 2.5 minutes. How far away were the bad guys? So first we're going to start out by writing our equation that we know. So we've got our average speed equals our distance divided by our time. When the question says how far away, it's asking us to calculate the distance. So we're going to need to algebraically manipulate our equation to get distance by itself. So we're going to need to multiply both sides by time. Time's going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with distance equals our average time, or average speed, times our time. Now we want to plug in our variables. Our average speed in the problem is 544 kilometers per hour. Distance is what we're trying to solve for, so we're going to say x. And our time that we're given is 2.5 minutes. Now, we need to look at the units before we actually solve this problem, because our average speed is given to us in kilometers per hour, but time is given to us in minutes. The units have to match up, so we're first going to have to convert minutes to hours before we can do our problem. So we'll do our factor labeling. We know that there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. That'll cancel out minutes and give us hours. So 2.5 divided by 60 is going to give us 0.042 hours. Now our units match up. We're going to go back up and plug in our variables. For distance, we'll plug in x. For our average speed, we'll plug in 544 kilometers per hour. And for our time, we'll plug in 0.042 hours. Now, look at the units for a second. In our average speed, hours is in the denominator, and in our time, hours is in the numerator. Hours actually ends up canceling out the way we have the problem set up. We're left with kilometers, so we know we have our problem set up right. We're going to take 544 multiply it by 0.042, and that's going to solve for our distance. So x equals 23 kilometers. And we want to say 23 kilometers because when we look back up at the original problem, we've got 3 significant digits in our average speed, and we've only got 2 significant digits in our time, so our answer is going to need to be rounded to 2 significant digits. Now let's look at our last problem. In this problem it says a race car travels at 125 kilometers per hour. How long will it take the car to travel 5,000 meters? So again, we're going to start with our equation. We know that our average speed equals our distance divided by our time. And this time we want to solve for time. So we're going to multiply both sides by time. So we've got time and time. Our time's going to cancel out. We're going to be left with time times our average speed equals our distance. We want to get the time by itself, so we're going to divide both sides by our average speed, and time equals distance divided by our average speed. Now we want to write down our variables. So our average speed is 125 kilometers per hour. Our distance is 5,000 meters, and we're trying to solve for our time. Again, we've got an issue with the units because our average speed is in kilometers per hour, but our distance is in meters. Kilometers and meters are not the same, so we're going to need to do a conversion. We're going to convert 5,000 meters to kilometers. We know that there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer, so our meters are going to cancel out. So we're going to get 5 kilometers for our distance. Now our units match up. We can plug our values into our equation and solve for time. So for time, we're going to plug in x. For our distance, we're going to plug in 5 kilometers. For our average speed, we're going to plug in 125 kilometers per hour. Notice that again, kilometers are going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with hours. So we're going to take 5 divided by 125. We only want one significant digit in our answer, so we're going to get x equals 0.04 hours. Well, we usually don't talk about time in those terms, so let's do a conversion to minutes. We know that 1 hour equals 60 minutes. So if we take 0.04 times 60, we're going to get 2.4 minutes. That means that if the race car travels at 125 kilometers per hour, it's going to take 2.4 minutes to travel 5,000 meters.